It's our final week of baby steps back to writing, and we're going to check in with how you did. So stay tuned.
Hello and welcome to the Christian Indie Writers Podcast, where we inform, encourage, and support Christian indie writers on their journey to publication. I'm Jamie Hirschberger. I write short fiction under the pen name J.R. Nichols.
I'm Jennifer Carl Tong, and I write historical Christian romance.
I'm Christina Catane, and I write Christian fiction.
Well, we're so happy to be with you on this beautiful Friday. At least it's beautiful here in Florida. The temperatures have come up just a bit, and it's the weather I like. I don't know if y'all are freezing up there. Yes, I'm seeing shaking heads. Yes, okay. So we'll talk less about how it's beautiful here. And we're so happy to be here live, 10 a.m. Eastern on Fridays. We have Purpose Behind the Pen and S.L. Perrin wishing us a good morning in the live chat. We encourage you to become a part of our live chat community as well if you are able to catch us live. If not, you can find our podcast on any platform that your favorite podcasts are made available to you. And we like to say, if you love us, tell your friends. If you hate us, tell everybody, because we're trying to expand our reach to as many folks as possible so that we can provide encouragement and support for the writer's journey. Good morning also to Piper and to Catherine. And Piper says she'll be listening, but busy with her hands this morning. So happy to be able to listen live. Is she like sorting cranberries? I wonder. Oh, wait, they got rid of the cranberries.
They did, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe she's crocheting or knitting or maybe even writing.
Or chasing after her gremlin grandkids.
Oh, possibly.
I don't know why I thought of folding laundry, but that's what came into mind.
Oh, yeah, well, probably because you might be behind like I am. But what is up with you, Tina? We normally start every episode with what's up. We go around and ask each of the hosts what's up. And so I'll start with you today, Tina. What's up?
Well, I just downloaded this app on my phone called Abide, and it has like meditations on it, because part of my eating program is they want you to meditate, and I don't like their meditations. I want Christian meditations. So I was listening to this one just the other day, and it was about your body being the temple of the Holy Spirit. And the guy who was guiding it said, imagine yourself walking into a temple or a sanctuary, and what is the feeling that you have when you walk in there? And, it's like this reverence. So, like, we don't worship the temple or the place, but if God's presence is somewhere, we have a sense of reverence for it. And so you think about, I'm teaching out of Hebrews on the Wednesday night Bible study, and we're talking about the Holy of Holies in the tabernacle, and how the high priest could only go in there once a year, because God's presence was in there over the Ark of the Covenant, and he had to wear a bell on the tassels of his robe in case he went in there unworthily and he died because he was unworthy. They would hear the bell stop ringing, and they had a rope tied to his ankle, and they could pull him out because nobody else could go in there because it was such a holy place. And then there's the story where they're moving the Ark of the Covenant, and it starts to fall, and one of the men, the man that reached out to touch it, he'd actually had that ark in his house for several years. So he had become too familiar with it. So when it started to fall, he reached out his hand and touched it, and instantly died. And so then the guy said, and so how do we look at our own bodies if our bodies are the temple of the Holy Spirit? And that just really struck me. Really struck me hard, especially as somebody who has a food addiction and an eating disorder. Like, how do I look at the temple And I know like that's old news. Like everybody knows that our bodies are the
But
temple
it's
of
the
the
way
Holy
that he
Spirit.
framed it, right? It's the way that
Yeah,
he framed it and made
the
you
way
like
he
go
made
one
me
place.
feel that reverence first,
Right. Yes.
and then said, "And your
Mhm.
body is the temple," and that just really struck me. And then another one that I did was on being quiet before the Lord, and so
Mm.
I'm a number 2 intellection, and I always struggle with making my brain be quiet. Like, how is that even possible? I don't know how that's even possible. Like, my brain is never quiet, never.
Same. Same. Mhm.
And so I just started saying, okay, God, obviously my brain is not going to be quiet. So could you just guide it? Like,
Yes.
guide the thoughts in my brain
Mhm.
to where you want them to go. And what happened was the first time I said that was, it took me a minute to realize I wasn't being distracted. All these ideas, I had just done like 30 pages of work writing out answers to questions my book coach asked me about the character arcs of my 4 characters that I have. And suddenly all of these things that I need to put in there started coming into my head, and I started writing them down. And an hour and a half later, I didn't write out the scenes. I just wrote out like one line about the ideas. I had an entire page.
That's awesome.
An hour and a half later. And I went, wait, I didn't do my devotions. And God was like, yeah, you did.
Mhm.
Because how many times have I wrote that JJ, like, was it not Mozart, Bach or somebody who writes JJ at
Yeah.
the beginning of all his things,
Mhm.
Jesus help. Like I write that on my pages now when I do my writing. And I was just like, wow, it's just incredible. Like some of the ideas that came to me that I don't think I ever would have thought of.
I so love this, Tina, because like I like you have a hard time quieting my mind. And it was just recently that like in my time with the Lord that like I feel like he kind of pointed out to me, like, who do you think made you? Like, why do you try to keep making yourself into somebody that you are not? You know, and it doesn't mean that like God doesn't want me to try to outside my comfort zone and doesn't try to like settle it, but to lean into who he's made me. And I love that what you said, like lean in and just hand it to him, right? He made me this way for a reason, right? So hand it back
Yeah,
to him and see what he does with it. Like
right.
that'll preach, sister. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's been a great week for me
Mm,
with the Lord. And then like that bleeds into everything else.
right. Well, and then I mean, like seriously, the first one you talked about too, as a writer, to how he made you feel that sanctuary, how he made you feel that like that awe of reverence first, and then gave you what to do with it. As a writer, if we can harness that, if we can
Yeah,
get our readers to feel what we want them to feel, and then give them the story. Right? Because nobody cares what Franny Mae did if they don't care about Franny Mae. Right. So don't just jump into, I mean, sorry, I don't want to do a whole nother episode here, but don't just jump into like, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened, because nobody cares. They got to
right.
care about your character first. Like I am a big believer of jumping into the middle of the action of your story, but within that action, there has to be an element of like, why do I care about this person? So yeah, that's good stuff. So.
Thanks.
Well,
What about you, Jamie? What's up with you?
yeah. Well, first of all, I just want to remind you that I have my podcast host cup that I
You
got from
should.
the thrift store for $1.
We
Keep calm and
can't
eat
afford.
cheesecake.
Yeah, we can't afford like the rights to do that, but it'd be so fun to have podcast like cups like that. If
Well,
we
we
just like
could all
put our
dress up.
faces, we
We
could.
could all dress up in like 80s gear and do our hair with feathering. We know how to do 80s hair. We could do our
Or
own
just get wigs. That'd be
I'm
poses.
not
fun.
Yeah.
sure we can afford that much Aquanet.
No, we need a
That's
couple
awesome.
more Patreons before we can afford it that much.
Did you know they're doing a remake of the Golden Girls?
Oh, why? Don't touch it. Don't. I hate that. I'm sorry. It's maybe going to be great. See, I know nothing about it, and I'm already like, don't. You know what I mean?
Well, they're also doing a remake of Little House on the Prairie too. And again, yes. So it might
Michael
be great.
Landon.
I know. So
You know
maybe it's
why?
going to be
They need
great.
better writers because nobody can come up with anything original.
It's not just that, it's also the political stuff they try to put in. Like, that's
Yeah.
my problem, is that, like, because according to things I was reading about this new Little House on the Prairie, they want to try to stick closer to the books. And to be honest, the TV show wasn't that close to the books.
No.
So it might feel like it's a completely different show, and I would not be opposed to that. But if they don't try to put in an agenda, right, that this is why, Star Wars and this is why Marvel are failing now, is because of trying to cram an agenda in there and not looking at who your audience is, right?
Yeah.
Like, we could have, that's an episode, girls. We need to have an episode about knowing who your audience is and not taking them off. And there's so many examples in the past year that we could talk about.
I just feel like then call it Little House in the Big Woods, or call it one of the other names of the, like, Little House in the Big Woods was first anyway. And then you're not like trying to be Little House on the Prairie. Like, if you're not going to be Little House on, like, I hate remakes, first of all. And second of all, like, I hate remakes. see, point
and
one.
Thirdly,
but anyway,
I hate remakes.
Yeah. I stopped watching Anne with an E. I love Anne of Green Gables. I love the books. I love the original miniseries that was on PBS. Love, love, love. Like, literally in college, we skipped a whole weekend, my friend and I, of all social activity, ordered food in and sat and watched, because this is exactly before streaming, and just sat and watched as they played it on PBS the whole weekend. Like, I love it that much. But Anne with an E, I could only get so far, and it wasn't even political stuff. It was just that whoever was directing it decided they wanted to put their own spin on it. And I'm like, no, that's not what I'm here for. If you want to put your own spin on it, write a whole new thing, right? Write your whole new story and
write something original and fresh that we haven't seen before.
Yes.
Like, get some ideas, man.
Shocker. Yeah. Write something fresh. Shocker. If you don't want to do something fresh. So I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jamie.
Those people who played Matthew and Miranda Cuthbert in that miniseries, there are no other Matthew and Miranda Cuthbert.
Agreed.
Like, you cannot, that is like the seminal portrayal. Like, you can't do it again, but whatever, people can do what they want.
And you can't replace Michael Landon as the dad on the House.
No, Michael Landon.
Can't do it.
I know.
It's not possible.
So, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen Anne with an E, because this is my biggest complaint. This is why I stopped watching it. So turn it off now if you don't want to hear this. Matthew doesn't die. He survives.
What?
See, changes the whole feel of the story, the whole struggle, and the whole, which we're having an episode coming up here pretty quickly on conflict in your story. It just changed the whole thing. And it was just like, this isn't even the story. This is not Anne's story anymore. This is a totally new thing. So
call it something else and make a new thing.
Right? Yeah. That's what we're doing. Like, I'm not remaking someone else's stuff. There might be elements of things that I was like inspired by as a kid that, like we've talked about many times how, oh my gosh, you're calling for Phoebe.
When calls the heart?
Yeah, no, a calling for Phoebe, how I had this idea in my head, but then I found an older book by one of my favorite authors, Jeanette Oak, and I'm like, oh, it's already been done. And then I read it and it wasn't what my idea was. And it kind of made me angry how the book ended. So I was like, no, I'm doing this now. So clearly I'm inspired by other art, but it's my own thing. I'm writing my own thing. So anyway. I didn't not realize I was going to get this fired up about
I'm sorry to derail everybody. But my real what's up is something called the Pep Talk Hotline. That's PEPTOC. And if you ever just need a dose of dopamine or just a little bit of a cheer up, you can call a number and you can have kindergartners give you a pep talk. Yes. And let me just tell you, let me just tell you the phone number. It's 707-873-7862. And if you want to know more, PEPTOC.net is the website, and it's an art project. And I'm a big fan. I called it up today just to hear little sweet voices tell me, you can do it kind of stuff. And that is what I wanted to bring to you all today.
I was thinking it was gonna be something different. I love this, but I'm like, oh, why didn't Jamie think of this? Like, Jamie, you should have a hotline or have like a tier where people can just call you. You set up an appointment.
Oh,
And you are the best cheerleader on our team.
oh,
So,
thanks.
like, and you love everybody. Like, that would be a great
Yes.
thing. Like, if you guys would like that as a tier on our Patreon, where you can just set an appointment for like 15 minutes to talk with Jamie, and Jamie you can tell Jamie what's going on in your life, and she can just encourage you. I'm telling you, it'd be worth whatever we charge for that tier. So,
And I bet you she could like get her inner drama queen on and do it as a kindergartner. I'm just saying.
If I must.
oh gosh.
I appreciate that. So I hope anybody can benefit. Purpose behind the pen says that would make her day. It sure made mine. Set my mind frame upright for this episode. In fact, I just called it before this episode. It's so cute.
And they have a website and they have a book out that's called "You're Amazing Like a Rocket." Pep talks for everyone from young people around the world.
Yep. And when I called, they had an option for a different language. And so, give it a try.
I'm going to send this to my college student. Like, wouldn't this be a nice thing to show up in her mail for her? Like, I love that. Thanks for sharing that, Jamie. That's awesome.
Yeah. And what's up with you, Jen?
Oh,
we saved the best for last.
So we talked before we started, like, how much should I share? I've been sick. This is where like, and it's been off and on, and I don't know why it's off and on, but I thought it was better. I thought I had like food poisoning, and then my daughter ended up the next, and once I started feeling better, she had the same exact symptoms. And when I say same exact, we're talking bathroom issues. So this is why I didn't know how far to go with this. And so I'm like, oh, so I caught something clearly. So then we were on the mend, and then Tuesday night we were having, I wasn't feeling great over the weekend, but I could feel I was on the mend. And then I felt like I was better pretty much Tuesday night. And then Tuesday night we were having our meeting, the podcast meeting. And I'm like, I could just feel I'm getting worse and worse. And all of a sudden I'm like, girls, I got to go. I had to run out of our meeting. And so like, it is consuming my life. Like, I feel like when like I'm exhausted all the time, because, when you have those issues, like it
depletes you.
It literally and figuratively depletes you. And so it does affect my comments for our challenge, because this last week and a half, I have been very MIA from the project, because when you don't feel good, like, it's kind of hard to like sit down and be creative. And so I feel like I've just kind of like deserted everybody, but I honestly, I was in one room of my house a lot this last weekend.
You were otherwise engaged. You were occupied.
I was occupado.
You were spending time on your throne like the queen you are.
Yes.
Well, we decided to put Jen's What's Up last because she was like, this is going to reveal a little bit of what we're talking about today. And it is what we are doing is we are sort of recapping our baby steps back to your writing challenge series. We did a series of 3 challenges designed to encourage you to get back to your writing, find your writing groove again, however you want to put it. And who would like to recap? Tina, why don't you recap what the week's challenges were for everybody?
Okay, week 1 was open the manuscript. Just open it. Week 2 was...
I did good with that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I might not have posted all the time, but I did good with that. It would be in the middle of the night, I'd be like, oh, like before midnight, I got to look at it. So
open it up on your phone.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Week 2 was to write 500 words a day. And week 3 was to write 1,000 words a day.
Kind of like like we said, baby steps back to our writing.
Yeah. And okay, so this week we wanted to talk about how did you do? So anybody who is in the chat now, who possibly is a lurker in our Facebook group or isn't a part of our Facebook group, we would like to know how the challenge went for you. And also we are going to have sort of a recap of what we saw posted in the group over these past 3 weeks. So do we want to do that before we talk about our individual stories, Jen? What do you think?
Yeah, that's fine. However you want to do it.
So,
You're hosting.
Me and my big
Yeah.
mouth. Okay, so these are not necessarily in order of the challenge, but we grabbed some comments out that we felt kind of described the journey. Rhonda Schmidt posted on January 21st. There's a belated post for yesterday. She wrote 790 words on a blog post. Yay to sitting my butt in the chair and getting it done.
Yes.
Hooray!
Yay for you, Rhonda. Honestly, like it is. It's all about getting in the chair, and it makes a huge difference. Like,
Yeah. We've talked about that before. Like you can't, you've got to have the butt in the chair. That's Jen's phrase that pays. And so happy that we inspired you to do that.
and here's an example. Like today, if we didn't have the podcast, I would not be in my office right now. I would be laying down. I would be trying to do dish. You know what I mean? Like I have a family. I still have to like feed them, and they want to eat 3 times a day, every day. Like what was up with that?
What is
right?
their problem?
What is their problem? They're so demanding. But like I would be doing like the bare minimum of everything else, and this would be falling off. But today I have to be here, right? And so as we're writing, it was a little rusty at first, and then it started flowing, and now I want to be here, and it's because I put my butt in the chair, right? So, yeah, so good for you,
Yeah,
Rhonda.
and the people who are, in my opinion, psychopaths who get up at like 4 a.m. so they can go to the gym before work, they're always like, once I've actually gotten there, I'm happy that I'm there. And
That's true. Yeah.
yes. And if you are someone who makes those kinds of commitments, it's actually getting up, getting there is half the battle.
All right. Agreed.
Okay. Right. And then our next capture is from Annalie. Annalie, I hope we're saying your name right. And she managed to write 2,000 words. And she just did 3 45-minute sprints and listened to music. And now she has some words for Frank's Fantasy Adventure. Ooh, that sounds fun. So, yeah, just making the time. And I believe that was for our segment of the challenge that was 1,000 words.
Yeah, I think so too. And I love that she says, so now I have some words for Frank's Fantasy Adventure to edit. It will probably take me the rest of the week. But let's just stop right here, because this is where I would start beating myself up, because I try to compare myself to those authors that do 5,000 words a day, or even 2,000 words a day. 2,000 words a week, if you were consistent with this, would bring you 100,000 words a year. You'd be writing a novel a year, right? And most people out in this world that say, I want to write a book, they're not doing that. So good for you, Annalie. That's awesome. Plus, it's hard for it not to naturally ramp up, right? When you get excited about your writing and you get into a flow, you end up, the 2,000 will seem like not as much, because you'll be doing more writing as you do it. So.
All right. And then we wanted to share this next one because we found it very funny. Sonia says she puts the words in, then she takes the words out. She puts the words in, and she shakes them all about. She's calling it the revision hokey pokey. We thought that was a lot of fun that she would say that.
Because that's what her work is right now. She's in revision, right? So
yeah, she was not in writer's world with us. She was in revision world.
And let me just tell you that Sonia is in my writing group, and her work is hilarious.
Yay!
It's hilarious. Oh my gosh, I can't wait for it to get published so you all can read it. It's just so funny.
That's wonderful. Okay, and then we've got a visual for you. Apologies to those of you who are listening only. Teresa Thomas made some manuscripts that have adorable covers and beautiful colors. And I'm just telling you, this kind of a thing where you want to pick it up is so motivating and inspiring. You know, if your environment is beautiful and you don't have like a cluttered up situation like what I have going on here, I will not even show you because it's embarrassing. But when you aesthetically pleasing, tactile experiences, ooh, that'll really get you in the mood to be productive.
Doesn't this make you want to write?
Yes, or color, or draw, or create. Yes.
Tina just held up a pen, a bunch of pens, color pens. For those of you who are not watching.
Yes, if you're not watching, you kind of missed that. Sorry. Okay. All right. And then we have Elizabeth Henderson, who was not able to catch our podcast. She was like, oh, now that I see the title of the latest podcast, all the posts about I Write Today make sense. Keep up the good work. How awesome that we've got a cheerleader, even though she was not partaking in the challenge. That was really sweet.
And I have forgiven Liz for not naming her baby, actually naming her baby Tiger as we suggested. But if you don't know, if you know, you know, and you're laughing right now. If you don't know, when this episode is done, go back and search for our April Fool's episode. Liz had a big starring role in it. But Liz's baby did.
Yeah. Oh, I wonder how little Tiger is doing.
I know. Always Tiger in our hearts.
All right. And then we had Jamie crying on the internet again. And delightful Cindy wanted to share with me and anybody else who was relating to the emotions I expressed during week 2. She was listening to the Christian Speculative Fiction podcast while she sewed, and an interview with SD Grimm Paul Regnier said he used to put too much emphasis on making it a business and suggested Philippians 2:13. For it is God who is at work in you, both to will and to work for his good pleasure. That was just such a nice reminder. We wanted to make sure that we showcase that today. Thanks for being there for me, Cindy. Oh, you're so sweet.
Another one of our cheerleaders. Love her.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Okay, and then Catherine Carroll, 517 words. Woo! I've been putting off getting started on creating a page on my website for author mental health coaching, and it was a great way to avoid my manuscript.
But you wrote, Catherine, another one of our friends.
Yes,
Catherine, come on, quit beating yourself up because you wrote.
Yes, you did.
Point. Yeah.
And I think it's funny also how we will find ways to avoid our manuscript. My house is never as clean as it is when I'm supposed to be writing.
I never clean when I'm avoiding, because I'm avoiding the cleaning and the manuscript.
Yeah.
Yep.
Both of them feel equally hard to me.
So, well, it's like that sometimes.
The getting started.
And then finally, sorry, but the last two are visuals. Christina Catane posted an image she found on the internet, and it was like a world popping up out of an open book. And it got so many positive reactions on our Facebook page that we wanted to showcase it here. And she keeps trying to not take credit for it because she found it on the internet, but it was still so very inspiring for us. We made it a deal. If you were the first person to accomplish this challenge, you got to post the picture, and this was a very popular one. Yeah.
And I just Googled open fantasy book and image. That's what I did. And it was like the third choice. So you could find this and similar ones if you do that search.
Yeah, if you make that your desktop screensaver, I wonder if it would beckon you to your machine to do some creativity and writing.
I want to go camping personally, but
I think I could use AI to make something like this, but with the Upper Peninsula landscape for calling for Phoebe. That'd be so cool. Yeah, it doesn't have to be just fantasy.
And then Tina, her favorite image / post from after on the heels of her post was this picture of a fan. And I chopped off the name at the top. Was it Annalee?
Annalee.
Yeah. And it's now I'm officially a fan of this challenge, and it's a picture of a fan that is blowing. So
this was one of our first ones. She said I opened my manuscript today. She was one of our first posters.
Yay.
Yeah. I think that was my favorite part about this challenge was watching like everyone scramble to be the first one and to see what they posted, pictures or whatnot. So, and here she is in our chat. Annalie says, beautiful pictures are worth more than 1,000 words, right? Yes.
For
agreed.
Sure. Yeah.
Are we pronouncing your name right? Please let us know if we are not, because we don't want to mispronounce your name.
And I love your beautiful profile picture also.
It is beautiful. Put that back up there.
So many beautiful people in our podcast family.
For sure.
Okay, and so hooray, round of applause for everybody, no matter what level of success you had for the Baby Steps Back Challenge, because this was about baby steps, correct? And Jen, you gave us a little bit of a hint, but what would you say is your takeaway for how this challenge went for you?
So I think it would have been better if I hadn't gotten sick, obviously. I think that I'm still struggling to get back into a pattern for many, many reasons. But I think that seeing everybody engage in this and have their little small successes has encouraged me that I don't have to be performing at the same level that I used to perform, right? Um, because I've really been struggling with that. Like, am I a writer still? And not because I don't want to be, but because I feel like I'm not hitting some sort of standard, invisible standard that's out there, and so it has helped me to just be able to like enjoy opening my manuscript again. And it has helped me to just be able to really enjoy this community, because even if I wasn't posting, I was seeing most of what everything was almost posting, and it was just a lot of fun. So
Yeah.
and I did get some writing done. I got more writing done in these past 3 weeks than I had in the 3 months previous to that. It
Mm.
wasn't what I was hoping. I was hoping it was gonna become like this explosion of writing again like I used to write, but I'm happy. If I stop and I think about that, that makes me happy that
Mhm.
I got more writing done. So,
And sometimes when babies are learning to walk, they'll like take those first 4 or 5 steps and then fall down on their butt and then they crawl again for a while and then they get back up and try again.
right. And Catherine says that every time we say baby steps back, she gets Sir Mix-a-Lot in her head. Baby steps back. We should have done,
Oh no, now I got it in my head.
hey,
Jen
maybe
was always singing baby steps back, like baby back ribs from Chili's. She
I
was,
want my
I got
baby
my
steps,
baby
baby
steps,
steps,
baby
baby
steps,
steps.
baby steps. Super,
Either
super.
one.
Love
Now they're
it.
both in my head.
Well, I'll go next because my experience does sort of echo yours. I shared a lot about how I didn't at all even attempt to participate in week 3 because I feel like whatever is going on with me is just telegraphing, communicating the message that I'm not ready to be back, which is fine. And so sometimes if you're somebody who's I don't know, like I wouldn't say I'm a perfectionist. I guess I have whatever. If you have whatever going on and you have a hard time believing that you cannot just muscle through, power through something that is a creative process, it's just it could be the facts. It could just be true. And also, as you were talking, Jennifer, I had the weirdest like vision in my head of a billion million little teeny weeny minnows like running at something in the water and each of them picking it off with like a little tiny mouthful, and then how eventually they consume the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And like my brain is kind of making a parallel to, they talk a lot about how the body of Christ is all one. And if our mission really is to just kind of be light and love and salt and everything like that for the body of Christ, it really is all of us just doing our little part, isn't it? And
Yeah.
even if you're just taking your little nibble to do that, it's going to be impactful. And so,
Wow, Jamie, so that image that you were just sharing, I know you in your mind were thinking it was for me, but as you're talking, like there was something I wanted to say, but then as you're talking, I'm feeling like you're saying actually like um what I wanted to say back to you. So a lot of the other podcasts I've been listening to, because it's okay, you guys can listen to other podcasts, we'll let you. Um, when they have guests on, most of them are not other writers, or at least that's not their main thing. They might write, but they're like editors, or they are
Mhm.
agents, or they are, there's lots of different ways to be in the writer community and not be, cranking out 10,000 words a week or 3 books a year or whatever. And what if like God is trying to move you into a different phase of your life in the writing community where you'll be able to write and be creative just for the joy of it because you found another way to be part of this community. Like I joke about the cheerleader thing, kind of, because I think it would be fun for you and for everyone else if we had that as a tier. But we do have kind of a something similar on our tier that's but it's a bigger, it's not just a little quick phone call. It's like bigger that you will do as far as like encouraging someone in their writing and to be able to like point out all the good things that are happening in their writing and like that. But what if God has like another plan for you? I don't know. Like
I don't
something
know.
to pray about and think about, because I don't think you want to be an editor, but you're not bad at it. So, but there's so many other ways that like we as writers need to be encouraged, or we need to have like I can't do it all myself. Like eventually I'm going to have someone doing my book covers. I do it now myself, but I'll be a lot faster of a writer if I don't have to do it myself. And someday someone's going to do book interiors for me. All these things, like there are people out there that's what they do to help support the community. So I don't know, maybe that's just, I don't
So
know.
the
That just
question is, how much writing do I have to do for you guys to all let me still hang out with you? Can
What
I
if
just
you
hang out and talk to you and
You have to
just
do the
come and
sprint
be?
every Friday morning,
Oh, okay, it's fair
or
deal.
whenever you do it for Friday.
Whenever I'm able to be on the podcast. Yeah.
if you were, and I'm not saying this is what you want to do, but if you became a virtual assistant for writers and and that's all you did and you never wrote another word except for on the sprints, you be part of the writing community. I don't know why you would feel like you have to get so many words in for us to accept you as part of our community. Does that
You
make
know what
sense?
I want to be? I want to be the personality hire of the writing community. Like I'm just here for my effervescent personality.
Well, send us over your CV and we'll consider it.
Oh, thanks for that encouragement, Jen. I really do appreciate it. And so there's no pressure. Like that's a lie. Like I do have internal pressure because I do also have work that is there, and I do
Right.
also have stories that I love, and I do also have characters that I think are alive, and I don't know when I'm actually gonna like sit down and do the work. Like, and it's so I've talked about this a million times. As a little kid, I would watch like Matlock or something like that with my grandmother, and there would be an author, and it was like the stereotypical I have writer's block, and my agent is like pounding on the desk, when are you going to get me your next chapters? And I just wouldn't understand why the author wouldn't just sit down and do it. It's like so crazy that now is something I'm experiencing. Do you know what I'm saying? Because as a small child, I was like, the agent is telling you that they will not give you your money. Like, sit down and do it, person.
Right.
You know.
I 100% like the whole, there's still characters that are alive to you like that. 100%. I have all these books that like still swirl in my head. And like these characters are like, I'm waiting for you to finish me. Like I'm waiting for my story. And like their stories are in my head and I just have to get them down. So like, yes, 100%. I absolutely get that. So,
and then I don't do it. So
can I quote Becca Syme to both of you? Because I heard
always 100%.
both of you talking about your expectations of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And she likes to say, don't should all over yourself.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing you should do. It's what you will do, what you can, and do what it's in you to do.
All right, I have more to
Thank
say
you.
about that before I read my sprint today, but we'll move on.
All right. So Tina, how did you do with the challenge? And then we can move on to the sprints.
I adapted the challenge to my own situation. So I didn't count words at all. I'm sure that I wrote 1,000 words at some point.
Right.
But my homework from my book coach was to take all of the revisions that we talked about and the new information from the character work that we did and create a new outline. And I do the Story Genius method of outlining where you have what the action that happened and the internal reasoning behind the action. And then that says, then at the end of every scene it says, and because of that, then this next thing happened. And it follows a pattern of every scene feeds into the next thing that happens because of the internal motivations of your characters. So that's how I do it. So I have done an outline with 70 scenes that I have outlined. I really feel like there's going to be more than that when I actually sit down and start writing, because I feel like there's going to be things that end up being inserted along the way once I really start. When I look at these very, very detailed character arcs that I developed, like there's going to be things I need to insert in there in order to get my character from A to B.
Right.
But that's what I've been doing is I've been doing this outline, and it's 70 scenes, and I have at least 3 or 4 sentences, at least, for each of the scenes. So I don't know how many words that is. I didn't count the words, but that's what I was doing all week.
Sounds promising. That's so amazing. Good for you,
I'm
Tina.
really like, I want to start writing. I hope when I meet with my book coach today at 3 that she's going to tell me now it's time to start writing.
Wow, what a wonderful place to be where you're hungry to write. That would be so great to be there. That's what a great book coach. We've said that so many times.
Yeah, she's perfect for me.
That's awesome.
Okay, so once again, a big congratulations to everybody who participated in the challenge. Good work. We'd love to hear your success stories in the Facebook group. Any little bit of progress is a success in our book. And Jen, you said you had intro comments before you tell us what the sprint prompt was and read your sprint.
Right. So let me read this. I will read the prompt first. It was 5 words, which is always my favorite. I don't know why, but the words were page, mourning, like if you're mourning someone's death, normal, photograph, and constellation. And I got 3 of the 5, but I struggled to get started. And so I'm now, as I'm processing throughout this whole episode and the things that we're saying and stuff. And you all know that like my first book of this new series, Kate and Colleen, both their names start with C. And then when I wrote the like antagonist, like the woman from the past coming back in, her name was Charlotte. That's a lot of C's, and they tell you in writing to not do that. So I shouldn't do that, right? So I'm shoulding all over myself. And so I have changed Charlotte's name to Loretta, and it just doesn't work for me. And no other name works for me. And so again, I feel like I am struggling with some things because I'm trying to do things like the way that I think they should be done, or someone's told me they should be done. I don't know. Maybe I just take Cade's name and I make it a K instead of a C, or maybe Colleen's name needs a change. I don't know. But again, these are the things that will make me sit here and just stare at the screen and not write. But I had to write today, right?
Guess
So,
who never cared that all of his names sound the same?
well, it's when you write, it's when you, it's not reading out loud. It's when a person is reading them. What it does to your
Okay,
brain.
but my answer is Leo Tolstoy.
Okay.
Rachmaninoff, Rakonsky, Verkant. Like, I mean, the names are all like, oh my gosh, it is an exercise in patience. Now, these
Hmm.
are very famous books like War and Peace. Also, Dostoevsky, did I say Tolstoy? Tolstoy and Dostoevsky, very famous authors who did not care. And I know this is modern and whatever, but then also Charlotte is nothing like Kate or Colleen in my visually looking at it. A CH
Yeah.
name is not going to register to me like a C name. And
Huh.
also, Kate is your male and Colleen is your female. No chance I'm going to get them confused.
Right.
So, I mean, if the ideal is that visually that would be confusing, it would not confuse me one bit. And I'd be interested to know if that would be visually confusing to
Hmm.
anybody else in the chat.
Well, Catherine says that Charlotte doesn't have the same sound as Kate and Colleen. It's your book, and it's
Mm-mm.
not confusing to any of us. Well, I hope that that's not just because you guys have literally heard it out loud, not been reading it. So anyway, it says Loretta in here, but I think I'm going back to Charlotte. I just really feel like that's who it is. I feel like she's not happy with me. No,
She's
I'm just kidding.
Charlotte.
She is Charlotte. So okay, here we go. Loretta traced the photograph with her finger. She wasn't certain what mourning a husband should look like, since her mother had passed first, and her father's example had, she was certain, not been one that other spouses should emulate. But she was fairly certain she was not doing it properly. She knew that she did not look the part. When Camden had passed, another C,
Mhm.
there had been little resources left to her for his burial, let alone to outfit her with an appropriate widow's wardrobe. She had been able to scrape together enough money to pay the neighbor's housekeeper to dye one of her gowns, but only enough for one, and it had been humiliating enough to, man, this is not written well, to have to admit that she did not have the funds for more. But blessedly, the former slave woman took pity upon her and did not spread the news of her devastation throughout the area. Or at least not that Loretta was aware of, because it was not long after Camden's burial that she and Lucy had set off for the frontier and for the new life she thought awaited them. New life. A page turned, she had thought. And it had
Mhm.
turned, but the chapter she thought awaited her in the book that was to be her life was not the one she had penned. But then again, none of the chapters leading up to this one had been a novel she wished to read, so why would this one be any different? Her finger traced the outline of the image of her dead husband's face, so like the image of the man that had just rejected her. How could she have known that Kate had moved on? never in a million years did she expect that he would turn her out. Well, maybe not turn out. He did put her up in this little shack. Loretta shivered. Just thinking of the house she was now to call home made her wince. But what was the alternative? She didn't even want to imagine. At least now she had 4 walls and a roof to raise Lucy and a vegetable garden to feed 3, 2, 1.
I really like this piece of work because I can feel you nibbling around the edges of thematic for at least her storyline,
Right.
if not something throughout the whole book. But this ideal of pages turning, a story written, who is the author and finisher of her fate after all, not her. Like, I
Oh,
feel that
love that.
this was really good writing for that reason, because thematically, I think a lot was revealed.
Thank you.
Right. And I think you feel rusty because you haven't been writing, but you've done the work in your head for your character, and you know her and you know what her story is, and that came out. Like, I didn't feel what you were reading sounded rusty. You might have felt like it was rusty when you were writing it and reading it yourself, but that's not how it sounded to me. To me, it sounded like this, like I was really into this whole idea of, she had this idea for her life and she thought Cade was going to, be her Boaz. And
yeah,
she went there and now she's in this shack and with her daughter and she has no idea what her future is. Like that, you captured that and that was your purpose. And I think you did a good job.
Thank you. I really appreciate
Yeah. And also, like, so interesting because her prideful, I only have one gown, like in the big city, how shameful. But where she is now, the fact that she has a gown of such quality might make her like it's all her like pride telling her that there's a problem, when really she's actually set up pretty well. But you know what I'm saying?
That's what I'm going for.
Yeah.
Like the person that, so it's the trick for writing Charlotte is on the outside, what people see and the way that she acts on the outside does not match what the struggle is on the inside, right? Because her whole life she's had this facade because no one can know the truth. No one can know what has happened to her and her dark secrets, right? But at the same time, she has a lot of growing to do too. She can't be like all haughty on the outside and on the inside be like, I can't write her to be like so innocent and like, oh, poor me. Like part of it has to be her thinking, oh, poor me, when the rest of us are looking at like, what is the matter with you? Like that house was good for Colleen, kept it clean and she kept it up good. And like, you just been given this house and you're like complaining about, like, that's like, you want to be like kind of people like kind of like not loving her, but at the same time starting to feel a little bit for her. So that's my struggle right now. But I appreciate that you saw that because I'm just touching on it right now. So
wonderful. Awesome. That's a good sign. So glad.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Catherine Carroll says Charlotte doesn't have. We already read
said that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, perfect. Okay, so I will now read what I wrote.
Yay.
It's words. I did get 2 of the prompt words because they were in the first paragraph, and then I forgot about them. So
hey, still 2 words. That's pretty good for you.
It's good
Normally
for me. Yes,
you just ignore it.
All right. So here we go. Mel put her finger on the page and moved it along the words as she read, her lips silently forming the shape of the words. Her lips curled into a satisfied smile as she closed the book and announced, Orion should be visible tonight. What's that? He was distracted by something happening out the window, she sighed. Orion, the constellation, the hunter, you know. Oh, nice, he said, his back still toward her. I only hope it's dark enough. We will be so close to the city after all. She could hardly believe it was true, the 2 of them having an entire evening to themselves. They had reservations at Tribina, and she was going to wear her new dress. She had even taken trouble to have the car detailed for the drive out. It was going to be a grand time. A little shiver of delight traveled up her spine as she contemplated the romantic scene. I only wonder if my shawl will be sufficient for coverage, she mused. I know the evening will be warm, but restaurants are often kept so cold. He did not respond, did not turn away from the window. Cal, are you listening to me? Of course, of course. Cal turned and rubbed his hands together, swaying a bit on his feet. He would not make eye contact with her, but looked at a point just above her left shoulder. Hey, about dinner and all that, he said. And Mel's heart sank. No, you don't, she said, standing and placing the book on the coffee table and her hands on her hips. I just can't do it, Cal said. I've got so much going on. We have reservations, Cal. I made a deposit. Take your mother. My mother. Yeah, she deserves a nice evening out after all she's done, all her help with the kids, which I would not have needed if you weren't such a workaholic. Mel's tone was steady and even, but her face was hot. She would not yell at him. She was determined, but she would not relent either. Let's not throw labels around, okay? Because if we're going to do that, I've got a few I'd like to put forward. This is not about me. Well, maybe it should be. What's that supposed to mean? You know what? No, I take it back. I'm not going to give you the opportunity to turn this around on me. I cleared this date and time with you weeks ago. Weeks. And now you're telling me you can't go. That's what's happening here. So I can't go. What is that, a crime? It's our anniversary week, Cal. Right. Not even our actual anniversary. So you'll spend the evening of our anniversary with me then? Is that what you're saying? I didn't say that. You know what? Mel turned her top lip inward and chewed it. What? What? You think I like working myself to the bone to provide for this family? Yes, I do think that. I think exactly that. I think you like working to provide for this family more than you actually like this family. How could you say that to me? You're joking, right? Mel scoffed. What was the last day you took off to spend any time with any of us, Cal? I defy you to name it without having to consult your calendar. And that is the end.
He's having an affair. He's absolutely having an affair. Cal, what a jerk.
Yeah, well.
I loved from the very beginning. I loved the tracing the words with her finger and her mouth, like moving to the word. Like it tells us something right there about her. And again, show don't tell. Like you didn't say she sat reading a physical book. Like we know she's there reading a physical book as opposed to on her phone or scrolling through, TikTok or whatnot. And so I think that was a really good example of show not tell, and I loved that part.
Thanks, Jen.
Yeah.
And I really felt the anger and the frustration, like in the whole argument part of just the mostly frustration of just like being on two completely different wavelengths.
Yes.
Yeah, it really came through.
Yeah, I think currently, like I'm hearing a lot of stories, and when the story is relayed to me, it dramatically shifts from like I was angry about X, Y, and Z, but then suddenly I was apologizing because the point moves from the actual offense to the other person. So thanks for your kind attention. We have to move on. Time is short. So Tina, what did you write for the sprint?
Well, I'll just read it because if you listen to my What's Up or in the beginning, then you'll understand where this came from.
All right.
The crackling of the fire, the smell of wood smoke on the crisp morning air, and the pink of alpenglow on the mountains filled Angelica's soul with a sense of peace. She had nothing against roofs and walls, but it was out here in God's creation that she felt closest to him. The sky was a soft pink in the west, and in the east. Whoa, I wrote that twice, sorry. And in the east, the constellations still twinkled faintly in the lightning sky. Angelica sipped her Russian tea, savoring the flavor of orange and nutmeg, then picked up her journal and quill. She took several deep breaths, attempting to quiet her mind, but thoughts of the vision she'd had ran through it. Questions about what Petra was doing there plagued her. She couldn't believe he would willingly take part in such a grotesque ritual to a false god. Angelica put her quill down, closing her eyes and taking another breath, imagining she was saying God's name as she did, Yah on the inhale and Way on the exhale. Why can't I quiet my mind? She asked him in her head. If I can't stop my thoughts, will you please guide them? She pictured the throne room in heaven, the Father seated on the throne, Jesus at his right hand, the 24 elders bowing down. Holy, 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 she breathed, trying to picture his radiance, but falling short, she was sure. Suddenly, she was flying among clouds. The wind lifted against wings where her arms used to be. She dipped her head, diving down below the clouds. The majestic Chugach mountain range lay before her like a sleeping dragon. The dragon lifted its head, its eye a mountain with a black hole in its top that rose into the air as if it was a normal thing to happen. The dragon roared into the sky, flames spewing into the air and falling back down on the earth in molten rivers. Now Angelica was falling, her wings arms again, useless to save her. She felt her heart in her throat, and then, with a jerk, she was back in front of the fire, the logs popping and hissing, the tree branches rustling in the wind that had swept through the clearing. Samuel stared at her from where he stood across the fire. Another vision?
Oh, it's not a vision. He's actually there, right? He's actually there. Like
Samuel is there. It's not Petra.
Sorry, I was like so into the imagery. Darn it. I was so into the imagery that I was just like, of course, the romantic in me was like, yeah.
Yes.
Great imagery, Tina. Like, I love that. First of all, I love that you took something in your real life and you were able to let like your creativeness take something from your real life and make and put it into like your art, because that makes art more real, right? That's part of what makes our writing so unique to us, and why AI is never going to take over completely. Like AI might be a tool that we use in the future in all of our parts of our life, but it's never going to take over because it's not going to have that intimate relationship between who Tina really is and what's going on in real life and who Tina writes, like, and what her art is. And so I loved that. I appreciate
it. Yeah. And that's a callback to what your coach said. Only you could write this.
Yeah. Right.
Wonderful. Yeah. That's really good imagery. Always. I love the use of the constellations still visible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I didn't even
prompt word.
I just ignored that word.
To get a prompt word in there.
Was that the only one?
Normal.
Okay. The two I didn't use. That's awesome. So combined, we did a great job.
All right. Well, we barely have time for what's next, unless I just disappear. One of y'all can close out. My what's next is to wait and see what's next. I really am very motivated and inspired by this podcast and everybody's baby steps back. We'll see. I may continue the trend of just trying to make sure I open my manuscript every day. So I'll report back on Friday. What's next for either of you ladies?
Well, hopefully I'll be feeling better. Hopefully I keep going on the upswing. But my what's next is I got some advice from our friend Cindy Piper Dow, and for using some AI as a tool for writing like the back of the book blurb stuff, which I'm excited to try and see what happens with that. So for me is working on the kind of the stuff to wrap up that book that's still hanging out there. But I'm also thinking that I'm moving on. I haven't finished book 1, but if you remember how I wrote my last series out of order, I'm thinking I'm going to be writing this series out of order too, because I really appreciated that I was able to put so many Easter eggs in the previous books, because I was kind of writing them at the same time and similar times, that makes it just a richer story. So I might be moving on to Charlotte's story. So that's my what's next.
All right. Bye, you all. Love you. I'll see you next time.
Okay.
Bye, Jamie.
Oh, I lost Jamie. Did she give us our what's next? Probably not. So sorry.
Yeah, she went first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she went first.
All right. What about you, Tina? What's next for you?
Well, I don't know, because I meet with my book coach today at 3. And so it just depends on how that meeting goes and what she gives me to work on next.
So your what's next is meeting with your book coach. I mean, that's
and then she'll give me homework and I'll do it. So that's what's next.
All right. Well, Purpose Behind the Pen says just looking forward to February's writing sessions, which me too. I got to get back into a regular schedule. And SL Parent says, you ladies bless me so much. Thank you for your encouragement and sharing your thoughts in sprints. Gorgeous words, gorgeous imagery. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much, Sonia.
We appreciate you, Sonia.
Yeah, you've been a great friend to this podcast.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for being with us today. I'm so glad that I showed up. I'm so glad that you all showed up. But until next time, may your pen be prolific and may your deadlines be met. May all of your words honor Christ. Bye, everyone.
Bye.